You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Sam's a sex doc. He's a Sam's a sex doc. He's a Sam's a sex doctor. Sam on the tour with Mo. Sam's a sex doctor.
Yeah, the sex doctor Sam Z is in right now. So listen up to KFI's Later with Mo Kelly. La 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 la, later with Mo. Okay, later with Mo. La la la, later with Mo.
KFI AM 640. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and the iHeartRadio app. Let's talk to the sex doctor. He is now in the building. Sam Zia, how you doing, brother?
Not bad. I'm glad that I'm here. I just had because I'm a marriage and family therapist, I just had a session with some people, and sometimes you carry some energy from people, and it just makes me happy that I came over here and felt the energy shift in the right direction. So.
I get that. I actually do. I understand that. Tonight, going to let you know in advance, we're going to have a spirited discussion, and we're also going to go straight to the hallway after this segment. So if you have questions and you're amongst the Momigos and you want to put it in the Motown chat, go ahead and we'll answer those questions, which are probably better suited for the hallway than live on air. You know what to do. Sam, where are we going to start tonight?
Well, I was, as usual, perusing through social media, and I saw a meme that came up where guys would say if they could have any sound effect accompany them as they're getting aroused, what would it be? And the one that the guy in the video had was the sound of
the flute.
No, it was the sound of when Mario finishes a level in Mario Brothers. The da 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 da.
Stefan, find that one for reference sake.
Now, personally, and I think I had to talk to Stefan about this one. My personal one is having the sound of a lightsaber turning on.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never thought of a sound effect. Thank you, Stefan.
Precisely.
Wave that lightsaber around.
Now, of course, anybody, if you have any other ideas for funny sound effects to go with it, please hit us up on the chat and stuff like that. But now, also, there's a sound effect for when, you don't quite reach arousal, those moments where...
You don't get quite to the top floor.
Yeah, those little tiny moments where you feel a little insufficient and insecure. There's a sound effect that should go with that as well.
I'm sorry, but I've never associated sound with that particular act or approach to the act.
Yeah. My head tends to wander during sex, so these are the sounds that come into my mind.
A soundtrack? Is there music playing in your head?
Oh, yeah, constantly.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about video games. Maybe I'm just wrapped a little bit differently. Maybe if there was a theme playing in my head, Rocky would be a little bit on the nose.
That would be, I could see that.
Yeah, it would be a movie soundtrack.
No Easy Way Out, Rocky 4.
Yeah. There's no, I see what you did there. But
Thank you.
Okay. With that as the precursor.
Yeah. Now, for me, obviously, I'm getting older in the years, and that sound effect of the Price is Wrong sound effect tends to come up a little more often now as I'm getting older. And, it can get embarrassing for guys as we get older to go and talk to their doctors about, the body parts not working the same way that they used to. And it's hard, doctors are, especially if it's a male doctor, you don't want to necessarily admit something where you're not as virile as you were in the past. And if it's a female doctor, forget about it. But for men, the ability to control and maintain arousal during sex is something that has a huge impact on mental health.
It's a new age because not only can we actually talk about it on the radio, there are also products available on the general marketplace, which are advertised all times of the day.
Yeah.
What would you say about that evolution? Where is it society getting a little bit more mature, or is it they've just found a way to monetize it?
Well, as sex has been commoditized without question. And you can make money off of it and everything like that. And we are coming up on, I think, or we just passed the 27th year birthday of Viagra.
It's been almost 30 years?
The Viagra babies are almost hitting 30 years old now.
Okay, let's back up for people who may not know. Viagra originally was a blood pressure medicine.
Yeah, that's what they were testing it for.
Yeah, and then as a side effect, they realized, wow.
It made things work. And it brought life to people who had felt sexually dead.
And you would think about it, if you're talking about blood pressure medicine, you're already dealing with a demographic probably on the other side of 40.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Now, and something that can affect that is obviously anxiety. And, performance anxiety is a thing for a lot of guys, especially when we get older. If things aren't working, we tend to put more pressure on ourselves. So if you don't want to take the medication route, you got to start actually working on relaxation methods, deep breathing exercises, yoga, things like that, just so that you carry more of a sense of peace and calm with you so that you won't anxiously block your arousal down the line. Not everybody is as good at mastering their anxiety as others. So for them, the medication is something that can absolutely help. There's Viagra and Cialis. Those are the two major players in the game.
Let me ask you this, and you may not know, but why is it that there are only two major players in the game? Isn't there, I thought that there'd be more research and possibly more entrance into that industry by now because it's so lucrative.
Well, it's obviously very lucrative, but if a product is working, there's no point in trying to adjust it or make it. Cialis works in its own way. It's effective up to 36 hours. It's more effective for people who are just like spontaneously going through their day and they're not planning on when they're going to do it. They're just going to do it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Viagra is like, we're ready to go. And 30 minutes from now, we're going to have some fun.
Oh, I didn't know the difference. Okay.
And that lasts up to 6 hours. So
and if it does last more than 4 hours, you should see your doctor.
Absolutely. A condition called priapism.
Don't ask me why I know that.
Is real. And the way you treat it, the way doctors treat it, is not something you want to experience. It involves needles and the draining of blood from that. And it's something that I'm sure some people have had Viagra horror stories. I, for one, have had one Viagra horror story. And it happened about 20 something years ago, back when it was like new on the market. And I was like, I got to see what everybody's talking about. I didn't need it. I was like 22, 23 years old. I was with somebody, committed to a relationship. And because of an episode of Sex in the City, they tried, one of the girls tried a Viagra pill with other guys to
see what the physical,
because they heard that there was some kind of reaction for them too, but it was really more placebo. Now, we tried it. Me and my girlfriend at the time tried it, and my girlfriend got violently ill, throwing up and dizzy, and just couldn't quite manage. And
I'm sure it's an off-label use.
Yeah, no, it's not something that is prescribed for women sexually. It's a placebo effect, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect that it had on her was more of like the negative side effects that you see from it. From overdosing on Viagra. And so she didn't necessarily overdose. She just had a really bad reaction. So she was stuck in bed, throwing up, having the spins, not feeling good. And I was in the other room alone with a Woodrow the size of a Winnebago.
Well, let
that
me ask
had
you this.
An attitude.
Let me ask you this. What are some of the other side effects that are less discussed or issues which may come out of using that?
Yeah, blurred vision, bluish tint to your vision is another one. Also, heart issues if you're overdosing on it. It's why, if you are going to explore those options, please do it with, I know there's online resources available for people. And if you're physically fine and everything like that, I'm not the medical doctor to tell you what to do. But I also know for a fact that your medical doctor has a better idea of how your body works and what medications work with it and which ones don't. So if you're going to have this conversation, don't be afraid. Don't have any shame about it. Go talk to your doctor about it. The benefits of actually having a good sex life, which these medications promote, are boundless. It decreases anxiety, decreases depression, increases exercise, boosts self-esteem. Yeah. Self-esteem goes up, improves sleep quality. There's so many different factors that go into having a healthy sex life that it's worth having these discussions, even if you're embarrassed to talk about it with your doctor.
Okay, we're getting ready to go to the hallway and continue this discussion. There are things that I would like to say that I can't say on this microphone and can't say over the public airwaves. But when we come back, I want to address the shame and stigma, because all these conversations we have, there's always next to it, adjacent to it, there's a feeling of shame and there is some sort of stigma. And if we could get rid of either or both, I think people are better off.
Oh, for sure.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI Later with Mo Kelly. We're live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and the iHeartRadio app. And we just came back from the hallway. We were having a very open conversation. We were having a free conversation. I was asking our guest, Dr. Sam Zia, the sex doctor, about a variety of subjects, and I can't detail them here, but a part of it, adjacent to it, was this idea of shame.
Yeah.
The idea that men have shame as far as performance issues, the idea that men may have anxiety about how they're perceived by women. Let me put it that way. How do we go about lessening that stigma, or is it just something that's here to stay?
We lessen the stigma by openly communicating about sex and sexuality. If we're hiding stuff, if we're ashamed to even discuss it, then it's just going to sit in the dark and stew and fester until it becomes something toxic. It's important to be actually open and honest about our needs and our desires with our partners and making sure that our needs are being met. If not, then we have more room for resentment being built within a relationship. You have more room for frustration and tension starting to bite on people. And then you start to seeing the dynamic between them shift to one where they feel like they don't quite understand each other.
Is the shame for men specifically, there's a shame as far as women and how women may be perceived by the world if they have what I call a body count that's higher than people are willing to accept. But men is different because I think it's self-imposed, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and men tend to be more braggadocious with each other about their sexual conquests and what their body count is. And with women, it seems like the more you have, the more shame gets thrown on.
From other people.
From other people. But really, a lot of times guys will also feel ashamed about either not having enough sexual experience or enough sexual partners, and feel like especially if they're in a committed relationship and they don't feel like they've fulfilled enough of their desires and experiences, and they feel too ashamed to communicate those desires and experiences with their partner. So at that point, that's where you start seeing resentment starting to build in a relationship, because one person is like, I really want to open up, but I am afraid of how you're going to react.
Speaking of,
and that's where shame comes in.
Speaking of opening up, and I wonder if this is factual or just anecdotal. In other words, my view of the world. There was always this belief that a woman starts to enjoy sex more when she hits 30 or so. First, is there truth to that?
I wouldn't say it doesn't necessarily get better. I'd say the quality of sex may improve because their partners may have more experience, or that individual may be more comfortable in their skin sexually.
That's what I was thinking, because a woman who is 30 or above probably is not in the shadow of her home.
Yeah.
She's not necessarily as tied to beliefs that were imported to her or thrust upon her. Maybe not thrust, that's the wrong word. Put upon her growing up, and she's just making decisions as she wants. Is that part of it?
Part of it, yeah. It's also being less concerned about the pleasure of the other person and taking more ownership of your own pleasure, and making it so that, because you hear a lot of times like, that person made me climax. You know, that person, and it's like, no, they didn't. You did that yourself.
That's right, because it starts in the mind, your own mind.
Because that person could go with someone who maybe inorgasmic. They may not be able to reach orgasm, and they're doing the exact same things, but they're not able to tear that wall down. Whereas with
Mr. Gorbachev.
yes, thank you. But with people, when they're, if they're doing it right and they're attuned to each other's needs and they're doing the things that get each other off, then communication is already present. You guys are making sure that your guys' needs are being met.
I wonder, though, if the concept of going back to shame, of that and sex has changed remarkably because of the internet, because people are able to see porn and how that reshapes the mind at a much earlier age than when you were growing up or when I was growing up. How does pornography fit into that equation?
Porn, again, is the fantasy of sex, and you have to keep it in that context. You're not seeing the reality of sex in it, but seeing the sexual act and seeing all of these different things has made it so that people have normalized sex a little bit more. There's a lot.
Well, they've normalized the act, but what they're seeing is abnormal.
Yeah.
And unrealistic.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's bringing up discussion. It's
okay.
It's like, you know what? That looks interesting. Have you ever wanted to try that before? Like, that's where the benefit of porn can be, is that it helps create and it instigates conversation between couples about ideas that they may have or want to try, and they can use porn as a way to introduce the concept.
Maybe in a healthy adult relationship.
Yeah.
But to those who are using it or experiencing it as a part of their growth, and I don't mean just as
not just physically.
Yeah, I'm just saying the growth as a fully formed adult. Because if you look at porn in your early 20s, it's probably going to impact you differently than your early 30s.
Yeah. Well, and there's the view that porn is exploitative, which a lot of times it is, but it's a lot of times people look at it as like we can look at the performers, and that's another discussion about the exploitation of the performers and stuff like that. But when it comes to what people are actually seeing, it's the way that porn has changed since the internet has come in. It was something that was like, we're going to go and raid my uncle's Playboy stash, to now it's like on every single phone.
Every single one.
And it makes it so that you have to have open, active conversations about this stuff, either with kids or with your partner, because where that stuff wasn't as present, the conversation wasn't necessary.
It wasn't accessible.
Yeah, it wasn't there. Well, you didn't need to have the conversation. Now it's something that porn, whether you like it or not, is going to have some kind of impact on the relationship, whether you like and want to incorporate porn to the relationship that you have with somebody or by yourself, or if you have a lot of shame about it and you don't want to have it be like it could be viewed as perhaps cheating within a relationship.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I work with couples that are very much like they've had issues with infidelity in the past, and they view porn as part of the problem. So that whenever they look at porn, that's as close to cheating as actually cheating.
I can understand intellectually where you can say that brings an element into the relationship that not everyone is comfortable with.
Yeah.
But as far as infidelity, I'm not sure I understand the leap.
It's it's not necessarily like the physical act. You're not actually being unfaithful. It's the feeling that gets left with the person who's on the other side of it.
Feeling inadequate?
Feeling like, what, I'm not doing enough?
That's what you want type thing?
Yeah. Oh, you're more attracted to that. I'm not good enough for you. That's the kind of girl you want. And it's like, people have to understand most guys aren't necessarily looking at the girl as far as how beautiful they are, because there's beautiful women all over the place. They're looking at the sexual act. They're looking at what's physically happening. Unless it's somebody who's like, wow, that's the most beautiful woman in the world, and I want to know her name and get to know more about her. We're not looking at the names of the performers or who's doing it. We're looking at the actual sexual act. So a lot of times people will feel inadequate because they view the stuff that they're watching as like, that's the person, the kind of person you want. Not necessarily that's the kind of stuff you want to engage in, the acts, the behaviors, the sexual things that you want to do.
Dr. Sam Zia, how can people reach out to you?
You can hit me up on Instagram. It's at Sam Z on air. Also, my Psychology Today page, you can hit it up. My number is 106352.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI is Later with Mo Kelly, live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and the iHeartRadio app. And are you a different person when you're overstimulated? Do you react differently to people? Do you respond differently? And I never really thought about it. I don't think of myself as ever being overstimulated. But then when I read more about it, it made sense to me. And I think I can be self-aware and realize when I am overstimulated. And to be overstimulated means that our senses have received a lot of information. And working in this business, that's all it is. And now we're feeling overwhelmed as we're receiving this information. Yes. And I think that's why oftentimes when I'm driving in or driving home, I may listen to a little bit of Nori, but then I'll turn off the radio. If I'm driving in, I'm not listening to any type of news or anything, or the radio's off, because I'm conscious of trying to regulate my emotional balance so I'm not overstimulated. And the way it comes out in me, and I'm going to go around the room and get people's thoughts about this, and Dr. Sam is still sitting in with us. When I feel that I'm overstimulated and I think I'm aware of it, I am snippy. Because the amount of information I'm getting is usually from social media. And social media is moving very quickly. Now, I'm responding to 5 or 10 different conversations. If you've ever engaged me on social media like Threads or something, I'm responding to a lot of people. A lot. Sometimes by choice. Some people are engaging me. And then to then start interacting with real people who are operating at a much slower pace, and you're having just a one-to-one conversation, I realize that I can be what they say short. I can be kind of snippy. I can be kind of rude at times. And it's been pointed out to me, and I try to be a little bit more self-aware. But I think that's what happens to me when I'm overstimulated. And so the title of this article is, Are You Mean When You're Overstimulated? And I have to say, maybe, yes. Maybe because there's I believe I'm somewhere on the spectrum. Somewhere. I don't know. We talked about this last year. People are finding they are on the spectrum after the age of 30 because my oddities suggest that. And sometimes I do have problems with interpersonal relationships and conversation. I don't perceive the world and receive the world as most people do. Like, for example, I don't like talking to people. I like talking on the radio, but I don't like talking to people. There's a difference. Don't call me. Text me. No, that's what I'm saying. It has to do with speed. I want you to get to the point. I'm not into fake pleasantries. I'm not interested in small talk. When I'm not at work, I don't want to talk about my job. I'm very linear in that regard.
100%. I'd agree.
Yeah, that's how I am. And so if I am overstimulated, going back to this article, then yes, I can be snippy. I can be short. And I try to stop talking to people because I will probably say the wrong thing or lash out. Dr. Sam, are you one who is aware of being overstimulated?
Oh, absolutely. And I work primarily as a mental health professional. So overstimulation is something, especially if you're on the spectrum, it's more pronounced when we get overstimulated. And the path to overstimulation is brutal. And it's like riding a wave that constantly gets bigger and bigger, like a tsunami. And it puts a huge importance on being able to separate yourself, like you were saying, getting in the car, turning off the radio, and, maybe listening to music or just having silence. It puts a priority on being able to cope with the stress and anxiety and tension as you go throughout the day so that wave doesn't carry as much momentum throughout the day.
Stefan, what about yourself? Do you find yourself overstimulated in a job like this? You're processing a lot when you're working for these shows.
I definitely compartmentalize because I've worked so hard to get to this position. So I, in general, am a shy person. I don't like to talk to people. And I think we've matched up on this. Like, if you have a party at your house, you expect the crowd. That's fine, because then you can kind of walk around, do this and that. But if you come home and you don't expect 10, 15 people in your house,
you've heard my stories, right?
Exactly. Like, you want to go into your room, but then you seem like the a-hole because you don't want to talk to anybody.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And
yeah.
I've told this story before. So very quickly, there are times when my wife will invite family over. It's usually her family because my family's super small. Both my parents, my father's passed on, but both of them were only children. There's just me and my older sister. My sister married someone who was an only child. They had one child. I don't have like aunts and uncles and cousins. So I'm used to having my space. And when I come home and my wife is one of 5, and they all have 45 children, and they have children's children. There are a lot of people at my house a lot. So when I get off work and I come home, and sometimes she'll surprise me like, oh, cousin so-and-so is here. It's like, oh, what? Really? And then I'm getting off at 10-ish, get home around 11-ish. And then people say, hey, tell me about your day. What's going on? Tell me about the radio show. How you been? FOH. I want to go to bed. Mm-hmm. That's overstimulation.
And that's after a 30-minute drive because we both live in the same general area.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be hospitable. I'm not trying to entertain. So I'm aware of myself in that regard. Carnisha, let me ask you, as far as, are you aware when you're overstimulated? And if so, how does it manifest?
I feel like I can feel when I get overstimulated. It's like my mind is going through so much, especially if I don't have my days planned out. Then I'm thinking about, okay, I got to do this. And then I'm going through the process. Okay, well, how am I going to get this and this done? And I find myself getting so tense physically.
Thinking about other stuff you got to do.
Yes. And I find myself getting so tense. And Daniel is so good because he's always asking me, are you okay? Are you good? And sometimes I can't even verbally express what I'm feeling or how I'm feeling. I'm just like, back up, give me some space. Let me breathe.
There it is.
That's the key, is it's okay to tell the people around you, hey, I'm overstimulated. I need a second. And a good way to kind of stem the tide of that overstimulation is giving yourself maybe once an hour or once every 2 hours. This is a thing that we used to have. I know we got to go to break, but it's an important point. There's something that was socially acceptable for us to engage in back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s that we're not allowed to do, that made it so people weren't as overstimulated back then. And they think that we can't handle our stuff like they used to nowadays. Mm-hmm. It's because every 15 or every hour or every 2 hours, we would take 10, 15 minutes for a smoke break. We would separate ourselves from the stress, whatever's getting under our skin, and we would go outside. And if you take a cigarette out of the person's hands and you just look at what they're physically doing,
they're usually looking away.
They're taking deep breaths. Mm-hmm. They're actually doing relaxation exercises. I'm not saying pick up a cigarette and, start up a bad habit. I'm saying give yourself the same permission that we used to give ourselves 30, 40, 50 years ago. Go outside.
That's legitimately mind-blowing.
Take a breath.
That's a good one.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Right there. That stems the tide. Walk. Do that once every 2 hours. Now we're starting to cut all of that wave of overstimulation and cutting it up in chunks to make it so it's more easily digestible.
Before we go to news break, Mark, is there anything you'd like to add? I know you're a very private person, but I know that you have thoughts.
No, Sam raised an excellent point. We need time to slow down and even to be bored. We have constant input from media, social media, internet. We have no time for reflection or silence. Your brain's a muscle, and it needs constant work to maintain itself. And I don't think we're going to like what it's doing to our brains, all this overstimulation, when we see enough studies have been done on it. I mean, think about this. It's almost impossible for us to imagine what life was like for our grandparents who grew up before TV, let alone internet and everything we have now. I dread what this is going to show about us.
Nothing good.
You have to really go out of your way to take time to, take a walk or a smoke break, like Sam mentioned, or just have some time to reflect and think. We don't build time into our day on the whole, just to think and just to be, if you understand what I'm saying, by just to exist without having to accomplish something. And that's especially true of Americans, which you find if you've traveled enough.
That's why I say you got to travel.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Before we get out of here, let me quickly do this final thought. I mean, if you know me, you know I love politics. It's my jam, as they say. I eat it, live it, study it every single day. And that's different from just talking about it. That's different from arguing with people on social media as a hobby. I mean, I really, really study. Because when you do, you better understand the why. Not discussing things only in terms of what you like, who you want to win elections, not your personal preferences, but why things happen. History, perspective, all that nerdy stuff. By now, or very soon from now, you'll know the name of Zoran Mamdani. He just won the Democratic open primary for mayor of New York. He's 33. He's a Muslim. Oh, my Allah. He's a naturalized citizen. Clutch those immigration pearls. And he's a self-described democratic socialist. Perish the thought. He is a woke triple threat. As I said, he's a democratic socialist, which is not the same as a communist or the same as a conventional socialist, but it's not for me to explain. He can sort that out for you. Weirdly, though, a lot of America has gone apoplectic over this guy, just mad at the idea that he's the new mayor of New York City. No, he's not. He just won the Democratic primary. Nothing more. Also, weirdly, many of us who aren't Democrats, like me, aren't New Yorkers, like me, have so much to say about a Democratic primary on the other side of the country. But let's look at how politics works. Mamdani's chief competition in the primary was the former New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, who was last seen resigning in disgrace after multiple sexual harassment allegations and arguably, depending on whom you ask, arguably mismanaging the state COVID pandemic response, especially in the city of New York. Even predecessor, Eliot Spitzer, who also resigned as governor, but for having a hooker fetish, he had more positive name recognition than Cuomo. Nobody blamed Eliot Spitzer for possibly killing elderly people in nursing homes during a pandemic. Then there's that. And then there's this. 38% of New York's residents are immigrants. 19% of them are registered voters. Mamdani put in the work on the ground, going door to door, himself personally, to turn out the vote. Cuomo did not. Mamdani used social media, especially TikTok, to get out his message, appealing to a younger voting base. Cuomo did not. If you're shocked that the Muslim naturalized citizen from Uganda and democratic socialist beat the old establishment guy who is linked to killing old people in nursing homes, you're just not paying attention to the details. Again, this was just the primary. In the general election, get this, he'll be facing off against former New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is now running as an independent. If you didn't know, Adams left the Democratic Party recently. But that's not what is going to hurt him. The fact, if not for a Trump pardon, Eric Adams would be in a federal prison right now serving a decades-long sentence. That is the problem. He probably doesn't stand a real good chance either. He was grossly unpopular, still is, even before he was indicted and arrested. Cuomo said he might also consider running in the general as an independent. But that doesn't wipe away the sexual harassment or the dead people in a nursing home. The Republican winner of the New York City primary just a few days ago, Curtis Sliwa. Yes, the radio host and former Guardian Angels leader. New Yorkers hate him. They hate him. Here's something else to remember. New York is 70% registered Democrat. 70%. And this conversation is not unlike what I said about here in Los Angeles. The Republicans are throwing out a massively unpopular radio host as their best foot forward. Sliwa ran unopposed in the primary, the grossly unpopular, unqualified radio host. It's like here in L.A., the Republicans aren't even trying. So yeah, Zoran Mamdani has a good chance to win if you're actually paying attention to the particulars. But what I have to take issue with, and here's the real takeaway before we go, is when you have people such as Congressman Andy Ogles, who wrote to the Department of Justice seeking an investigation into Mamdani's citizenship, alleging that he concealed his support for terrorism. Also calling him, quote unquote, Little Muhammad, even openly calling for his deportation, an American citizen. Ogles is a Tennessee congressman. Tennessee! Worried about the Democratic primary in the New York City mayoral race? Not New York's Elise Stefanik, but the Tennessee congressman. Now, I don't know about you. When you're calling him Little Muhammad and calling for him to be deported as an American citizen, that gives me the sense that this is not about politics, or at least the complaint isn't, that it's not about legal immigration because he's a naturalized citizen. And I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm not sure what it is. It's not his politics. It's not about legal immigration. It's something else. I wonder what it is. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly.
KFI and KOST HD2, Los Angeles, Orange County. More stimulating talk.